The 5 worst mods I did to my Jeep. Maybe worse ain't the right way to say it. These are the 5 just mods I didn't need to do. If I could go back and do it again, I probably wouldn't do these mods. So here we go, 5 of them. Now I'm gonna start with this. None of these mods are because they failed or they didn't work. All of these mods that are on this list are because I just didn't need them. So, number 1, and I really hate to say this one, my number 1 mod I kind of wish I didn't do was that CB radio. Guys, in my experience riding around, there's hardly anybody on CB anymore. And I have found when I go in North Georgia, I pick up a few guys up there, but I'm in Middle Georgia. I drive down to Savannah a lot, and there are times I drive with this thing on for weeks, and I never hear a person on there. Now, when I drive up North Georgia on the interstate, I do get traffic up there, so to me, it's fun. I bought a very good one. I bought a Bearcat 880. It was a pretty good CB, and the fire stick and the whole stuff. I mean, I spent a lot of money putting this thing in there because I hadn't had CBs in a long time, and I just didn't. I could have used that money to do something different. And I like CB radios, but there's nobody on them. So that's my number 1. My number 2, however, is going to be lighting. You see my switch controller here to run my lights, and the reason why I put lights on here is that they're not necessary and they're a lot of money. I like my lights, but I end up running rock lights, dial dynamics, and KC lights, and I think in hindsight I probably could have done with just one or the other. I could have got different KC lights, so these are just spotlights. If I'd have got some that were spot and floods, I wouldn't have needed the dial dynamics. Or I could have just not had the KCs and ran only diode dynamic lights. You know, lighting is one of them things you don't need. It is nice to have if you're in a rural area, if you're off-roading, stuff like that is good. But I didn't need all the lights. I do, however, like ditch lights. So I'm gonna say that's one of my favorite mods is ditch lights. But I think I didn't need the combination of KC and diode dynamics. I could have done that differently. But at this point, I like them both. The diode dynamics to me is kind of the signature look of my Jeep. So the ones the ones you see here in the bumper, these SS3s, it's kind of just the look. If you see a Jeep coming, you know it's me because them lights are on. These KCs, I kind of wish I'd gotten some that were like maybe spotlight in the center and floodlight on the edges. But you know, either way, they're good, they're fun. I still like them, but maybe they were kind of a useless mod. Could have got away with not doing that one. This is number 3, guys. I didn't do this mod. Dealership I bought the Jeep from did this mod, but these are 20s. As you guys can tell, I off-road in my Jeep, and these wheels look absolutely amazing. They are not good for off-roading. That's basically all I can say. I mean, they look great, they look amazing, I love them, but they are not suitable for what I do in a Jeep. But the dealership built a Jeep that looked good sitting on the side of the highway, didn't build one that looked good for off-roading. Because most people buy these Jeeps don't use them off-road, and yeah, so it just wasn't for me. I shouldn't have bought 20s. I didn't buy the 20s. I shouldn't have bought a Jeep with 20s. When I bought it, I always thought they were big, but when I started using it off-road, yeah, I got to get 17s. So when I have to change my tires, I'm changing my wheels too. Those will go away. Now this mod, I said this is all mods I've actually done. This one I actually did not do to the Jeep. I did it to the truck. So if you look here at the Silverado, if you look right inside there, those are power stop brakes. I added the power stop brakes to the Silverado to increase the braking capacity. Guys, I can't even tell. It did not make a difference. That was the entire heavy-duty braking upgrade. That was the pads, the master cylinders, and the slotted and drilled rotors. I can't tell you a difference. The braking to me feels not improved at all. And I'll be honest with you guys, the JL braking is pretty good. So, you know, it ain't like the older Jeeps where braking was an issue. Once I owned this Jeep for a while, I realized I did not need to upgrade the brakes, and so I didn't. Plus, I'm only on 35s. I think when you go to 37s, 38s, 40s, that's you start running into your brake issues. Being on 35s, braking's not a problem. So, I did not ever do that upgrade to the Jeep, though. The power stops were done to the truck. I'm glad I didn't do it to the Jeep because I had toyed with doing it. I had the idea, and I just, fortunately, didn't go with it. I decided to wait it out and see how the Jeep rode, and I didn't need it. So I didn't do that mod to the Jeep. Thankfully, I did save that money. For the last mod, much as I hate to say it, it's that metal cloak right there. Now this is not a knock on Cloak. Their product is great. However, I didn't need it. So when I bought the Jeep wandered really bad. And I kind of told the dealership that, took it back up there to them. They said there's nothing wrong with it. It says just the way it drives because it's lifted. And I was always trying to get the wander out of the Jeep. So the whole reason why I did the Cloak arms was to adjust caster angle. And to add a little bit more cast to it to maybe help some of the wandering, and it really didn't help. I have since done the entire Cloak suspension, the Cloak steering, not suspension. I did the Cloak track bars to the Cloak control arms, and in spite of all that, the Jeep to this day still wanders. And there's nothing wrong with the steering. It just wanders. It's just the Jeep. It wants to wander. It may be the 18 with the steering box it has is what's causing the wander, but at the end of the day, the problem is not that the Cloak components were bad. In fact, I must say every component I did to this Jeep, they all were good. The thing is, I just didn't need it. It wasn't necessary yet. Now that being said, future changes to the Jeep will include those Cloak arms anyway. So when I go to a higher lift, that's gonna be needed. So kind of gonna work out that I already did it. I just did it a year too early. But yeah, those are my 5 that I really didn't need to do that I did. And the thing with it is, it's money that I could have allocated to something else. That's kind of why it's on my top 5 worst mods list. None of these mods are bad. It's just that, you know, you got to pick and choose when you budget money what you spend it on. And in these areas, with the way I use my Jeep, I could have went another direction with some of these mods. So I share this video, so maybe if you're trying to do the same thing, you're like, hey, I only have this much money to work with. You know, maybe you do, maybe you don't need to do some of the mods you're looking at doing. So here's my list. Hope that helps you decide what you're going to do to your Jeep. And whatever you do, go out, have fun, have an adventure. Remember, Jeep speed Jeeping.